Hi everyone, it's Monica and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, at the beginning of the month I shared with you my new kit, which is called Down on the Farm, and I put together a journal page for you, or a little journal book, and I shared with you the bundle. But today I wanted to share with you the actual kit, which is more for card makers. Now, not to say that you couldn't make some wonderful journal covers with this kit, but the bundle really is more for journal makers and the kit is more for card makers, or just project makers, I should say. And what I'm going to create for you today is my signature passport card, because I want to show you how easy it is to put together this design using any of my kits. Now, off camera, I went ahead and put together the base of the card, and then we're going to go ahead and decorate it. And the base of the card is going to work for any type of kit or any type of designer paper. It's what you embellish it with, which is what makes it unique. And the base of the card, I wanted to go ahead and give you the dimensions, because I know some of you have asked for these in the comments. And honestly, a lot of times when I'm making this, I've done it so many times, I don't even think about what the measurements are. So when you're making the base, you're going to have, it's a threefold. So you're going to have the outside and then you're going to have the insert. And then once I have the base of the card, as you can see, I just kind of trace the pages so I can cover the white part. Now the base of the card is going to measure about 7 inches wide, and then long it's about 5 1/4. And then you're going to score it down the side to get your outside base. And then the inside of the card, which is the little page, the little green and white paper, and that's going to measure about 4 inches by 4 1/2 inches. And then on the 4-inch side is where you scored 1/2 inch to add the page. So you'll have a trifold. And then once you have the base, it's just a matter of adding some decorative cardstock to the white space. So I decided to go ahead and use the green and the white paper to cover the back side of my card. And as you can see, I traced it first and then I went ahead and I cut it out. And I typically will cut it a little bit less than where my lines are when I trace it, because I like to have some white space. And that really is the biggest part of creating a card like this, because once you have the base, like I said, it's just a matter of mixing and matching some of your designer paper or your ephemera pieces to make each card a little bit different. Now the back page, I normally will create a pocket, which is what I'm doing right now. And your pocket is going to be 2 inches deep. And then you're going to want to trim it the width of your back panel, and that way you can create your pocket. And then you're going to go ahead and just take some glue, or you could use some adhesive, but I typically like to use glue. And then I'm going to add it to the sides of each pocket as well as the bottom. Now, once I add the pocket, typically what I like to do is like to add some washi tape to the top part and fold it over the sides, because that just helps to reinforce it. And washi tape always adds just a little bit more design to your page as well. Now, I tend to be a washi tape hoarder, and I have lots of washi tape. So when I was going through my washi tape, I found this green and white strip that just matched my kit perfectly. I couldn't have planned it better. So I went ahead and I just pulled it out of my stash, and I reinforced the pocket by adding the nice strip and then folding it around the edges. And it's just a really nice touch, because like I said, you're going to be adding pieces of ephemera, maybe even a gift card into this pocket, and you want to make sure that it is reinforced and that it won't come up when people are using the pocket. And then once you have the pocket nice and secure, then you're going to want to go ahead and add your adhesive. And the adhesive that I'm using, again, is the 3-in-1 Beacon. And then you're going to add it to your back panel. And then from there, it's just a matter of deciding what type of designer paper or pieces of ephemera you're going to use to decorate the inside of the page on the left, as well as the smaller page when you fold that inner page closed. Now, one thing that I really love about working with digital paper is that you're able to resize it. So if you have some of the ephemera pieces that may be a little bit too small or a little bit too large, you can easily pull it into a Word document and resize it to meet your need. This little piece here, which is the one of the almanac pages, it's the vegetable planting table, I was able to trim it down, but you could easily resize it if you didn't want to lose any of the words. But as you can see here, I was able to trim it down to be able to size it perfectly to cover the left side of the page. Or if after you have printed your pages, you find that maybe you want to use a similar page. So for instance, the farmer's market paper, I used it for the base, but say you wanted to use that for one of your inside covers, but you didn't have enough paper, you can easily print out another piece. And that's what the great thing is about digital kits, is if you want to have cards that are similar, you can print them over and over again without having the fear of running out of the designer paper. And then another thing that I like to do when I am decorating my card is once I have it trimmed down, I do like to round the corners using my We Are Memory Makers corner chomper, because it just really makes for a nice finished card. And then, of course, once it's trimmed down, then you're going to go ahead and take your adhesive and add some adhesive to the back panel of your designer paper and add it to your page. Okay, so now that we have the 2 pages decorated, there's a couple of ways you can go at this point. You can certainly go and decorate the inside of the first page, or you can start adding some of your labels. And my favorite part of creating these cards, of course, is to decorate it with the ephemera. So I was excited to go ahead and use some of my labels to start adding those to my pages. Now, one of the ephemera pieces that I created for this kit was a flashcard, and the flashcard said farm on it. And this is a bigger flashcard, as you'll see it in the kit. But again, because you are working with digital paper, you can easily size this down, or if you're not completely comfortable with sizing things down, you can just trim it to create a little label. And I wanted to create a little label just to go to the top of my back page. So I went ahead and I cut it down, and then I rounded the corners, and now I'm going to go ahead and add some wet adhesive to add that label to the back page. Okay, so once I added my label, then I wanted to go ahead and figure out what piece I was going to use for the front of the card. And before I got too deep into my ephemera pieces, I wanted to find the piece that would work perfect for that front panel. And the piece that I ended up working with is the cucumber seed pack, which is perfectly sized to fit on that front panel. The only thing that I needed to do to that front panel was to round the edges and then add my adhesive, and then, like I said, it fit perfectly onto that front panel. Okay, so with the front panel picked out, then all I needed to do was pick out the piece that I wanted to decorate the inside portion of that page. And there were a few ways that I could have gone. I could have easily used that checkered piece because I had plenty of that paper left. And I also had plenty of the paper for the farmer's market. But I decided to go ahead and go with this little peas ephemera piece, because when I was kind of sizing up my pieces, I noticed that this was the perfect size. I didn't even need to trim it, I don't think. It just was perfectly trimmed. All I needed to do was round my corners. So I went ahead and I rounded the corners, and then I added some more adhesive to glue it to the inside portion of my card. Now, this little peas ephemera piece would have also worked great on the front of your card. So you could have gone either way. So like I said, there's a lot of ways that you can change up these cards so you have a similar base, but the design of the card overall is a little different. So if you wanted to create several of these cards, you have a lot of options that you can work with. All right, so now that we have the card completely covered, we have all of the white space covered, now it's time to add just a few more embellishments. And I decided to add this little file folder to the second page and glue it down so that way when you open up the card, it kind of flips open and you can have a little note there. It fit perfectly. And like I said, when I was putting this card together, this definitely was not a forethought. As I was playing with the pieces, I saw that this would fit perfectly on the second page. And that's when I decided to go ahead and glue it down and use it as a space to write a little note. You could even turn this into a pocket if you wanted to by gluing the sides and the bottom. But I wanted it to be able to flip open because, like I said, I thought it was a perfect spot to write a little note, especially if you're going to be using this as a gift. Maybe you want to add a gift card. And since most of your card is decorated, you do need some white space to add your little personal note. Now, a lot of these digital pieces that I work with are from actual vintage items. And then some of them I reproduce just using Photoshop. So when you see these cucumber seed packets or the peas seed packets, these are actually from original vintage seed packs. And what I do is I scan them and then I clean them up and I create digital kits with them. And I've been a vintage ephemera collector for a while now. I also had these vintage pickle labels that also would fit perfectly in this card. And a lot of these vintage ephemera pieces you can find in my shop. I know a lot of times I share with you my digital kits, but I don't always share with you some of my vintage items that I have in the shop. So if you like authentic vintage, some of these pieces that I have in the shop would work perfect with these kits. And here's an example of one of the seed packets that I have. And I believe I created a miniature seed pocket using this pumpkin piece. But I also have the originals in my shop. So I wanted to go ahead and share that with you as well. All right, so now that we have the card completed, I wanted to just go an extra step here and I wanted to create a matching envelope. And I used my envelope punch board to create this. And if you don't have this envelope punch board, it's great because it has the sizes for different types of envelopes. So all you need to do is just look at the dimensions or the instructions on the actual punch board, and it tells you how big your paper needs to be able to create different sizes of envelopes. So I went ahead and I sized this down so that way my card would fit perfectly into it, and then I punched it and glued it together, and as you can see, my card will fit perfectly into this little envelope. Matching envelopes are always a nice finishing touch, and if you ever have the opportunity, it's always nice to have a matching envelope. I also created these little digital note cards to be able to add as an address label to put on my envelope. When you are working with designer paper, your address may not show through if you write directly onto your envelope. So it's always nice to have a little label that you can add to your envelope to address to the recipient. And I printed these labels onto sticker paper so that way I can just trim it down and I can add it directly to my envelope. And I am offering up these butterfly labels as a freebie in my shop. So I will leave a link to that along with all of the other items that I used to create this card and envelope with links to the stores. And like I said, I'll have a link to this freebie along with the code down in the description box to be able to get this butterfly label to use on some of your envelopes. So I hope that you've enjoyed my tutorial today using my kit down on the farm, and I've given you another idea on how to use this kit. Like I said, I will leave links to all the products that I used, and if you've enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.